rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect, it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay. Time till the blackness is sober.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Just trying to get some new learning tools. Those is less for me, more for you. That way, when you're trying to explain this and teach your people, you got the visual. And for anything that hasn't fully clicked yet, you know what I'm saying? When you see it, sometimes it'll help it make sense. Yeah, it makes sense. So, plus it gives me practice with the animations. I was trying to get live earlier, but shout out to Kev that always reposts the stream without being asked. I was trying to get live earlier, but I was deep. I caught a vibe. I was trying to finish this book. So I got part 5 of the Black Genetics for Children series. I got part 5, 97% finished. But then I have a love book. That I was trying to get finished before Christmas. And I haven't really got that book finished. I want to say that book is like 70, 80% finished. But I haven't been able to get into it. And then this morning I caught a vibe. It's like, yeah, this morning I caught a vibe. So we're gonna get ready to jump back in where we left off. Nobody's really caught up anyway, to be honest. Everybody is behind because we had 22 hours of videos in 3 days. 22 hours of videos in 3 days. So is it 3 days? No, maybe it's more than that. 3 days in YouTube count. But in our world, it's probably like 4 days or 5 days, something like that. YouTube's count is off. Yeah, YouTube count is off. All right, so we're going to get into the big idea. What is the big idea? So let's run through some of these real quick. On a quiet Sunday afternoon. It's a quiet Sunday afternoon. It feels like Monday. Trying to open this up. Now, you know what I didn't do? I jumped into the book and I didn't, I should probably go through, I skipped over the intro. I should probably go through the intro. Because the intro kind of starts off, you know, with our thing, you know, our main thing. You know what I'm saying? You know, the push-ups, that's our main thing. And the intro to the book starts off with that. Not necessarily with push-ups, but a discussion that I think is relevant. Just to add insight. And today, that's what I was kind of focused on. I was like, okay, today we're just going to add insight. Today is an insight day. Let's see if we got our screen share back. Nope. That's crazy. Hey, out cold. StreamYard is out cold. Let me see if I can do multiple. If I can add another one. Actually, you know what? Maybe we'll just redo it because I don't want to delete the other one. All right, so the intro really just talks about the utility of the discussion, right? The utility of the discussion in terms of biochemistry, biokinetics, biology, right? Just in relationship to how the body works, you know, because sometimes when we're having a discussion and it seems like the discussion is maybe going over people's heads or the discussion is far out, people have a tough time relating the conversation. So when we think about anything, whether it is getting up off the chair, deciding to go get something to eat, deciding to use the phone, whatever it is that you do, right? I use the example of performing a push-up for educational purposes, right? But when you decide to do a push-up, it begins in your mind, right, with a standing electromagnetic wave pattern in the brain, right? Long before your joints move, long before you have, nerve activation, you have background neural oscillations in the prefrontal cortex, premotor cortex, basal ganglia, cerebellum, right? So maybe we write those down. Right. Now this is specific to a push-up. Right? This is specific to a push-up. Now, mind you, for decades, brain activity has been mapped by electricity anyway. So some of this should be low-hanging fruit, right? Prefrontal cortex, premotor cortex, basal ganglia, and cerebellum. Right? Then you have a shift phase alignment. The phase shift is the originating wave of intent, right? So we know that our brain functions, or at least is measured by waves, brain waves. Brain waves, as we discussed many times, but obviously in some detail in the brain wave book, right? EnQi and the brain wave. Brain waves are coordinated electrical activity, coordinated electric and magnetic activity in the brain, right? Coordinated electric and magnetic activity in the brain. Let me write something down. Ocean, you better knock it off, lady. I wish I could put this on the screen so y'all could see it. This way I need to have these books. Because we used to have a lot of articles. We used to put a lot of articles in the book for reference. Now we spend more time developing our own articles. It's like we got 100 books full of articles. We got 100 books full of articles and reference material. And all right. Like, say something, EnQi. Your mic is off. My mic is not off. There's just a few pieces that I wanted to go through. Electromagnetic waves and mechanical waves are all we have. They are both interpreted the same way. The brain only understands music. All right, peeps, good night. That's the end of the video right there. That's it. Unpack that. You good. You got your money's worth today. Send this cash apps, the super chats. Zoop. If I don't say anything else, that right there is it. Here go Tika trolling. Here go Tika trolling. Man. I would have been live earlier. See, you missed the beginning of the video. I was making my excuses of why I didn't go live earlier. I would have been live earlier. I had full intentions on going live early this afternoon, but I caught a stroke. Creative, you know what I'm saying? And I couldn't stop because it just coming. And I've been trying to get this book, this desire book. It's not really a desire book. Well, it is a desire book. That's the name of the book. But I was trying to get that finished like Christmas, you know what I mean? Like maybe Christmas the day after, something like that. And I just couldn't get it finished. But I was I had a stroke of genius this morning. I was in my bag, like, yeah. So stop trolling me if you heard it all. Electromagnetic waves and mechanical waves are all we have. They are both interpreted the same way. The brain only understands music, right? Now, obviously, by this point, we done went through the first, I don't know how many chapters of the In the Beginning book. So we should have some pretext, right? But the brain only understands music. That's super powerful in terms of our big picture that we've been wrestling with in terms of science and theology. And the reason why we're wrestling with science and theology and putting so much time and effort into this is because the solutions that we need are not available in modern science. The solutions that we need are not available in modern science. And we've been dealing with too many gatekeepers, right? We've been dealing with too many gatekeepers. You know, a lot of people didn't really pay attention at what was fully going on during the debate, right? Jabari teaches history, yes, but Jabari works in a medical school. We have gatekeepers. We have gatekeepers, people that want to, you know, that are making a good bit of change, keeping the people dumb, deaf, and blind, right? So we have to go to source material, right? And source material for our science, right? Now, I'm uniquely qualified to make these presentations and write these books because Masonry gives you a window into where a lot of modern day science comes from that John Q. Public is not privy to. John Q. Public is not privy to it, and 99% of Masons are not interested in it. So it's not that they don't have access, but they're just not interested. It's sitting right there. The books are all over. But they're not interested. You know what I'm saying? So when you get into Masonry, if you ever got into Masonry, there are certain studies that are required for you to move up, right? For you to move up in Masonry. There are not 10 times. There are thousands times more studies that are available to you, but they have nothing to do with you moving up in Masonry. So they're just there. If you study these things, cool. If you don't, cool. So most people, they get in Masonry, they want to try to get as high as they can go. Like they're interested in getting degrees. So 99% of the people in Masonry, their mindset is, I'm only going to focus on studying the things that I need to move ahead. And so they get degrees really fast and they go up and they wind up a 5th degree, 10th degree, 30th degree, whatever. But they don't really know that much. You know what I'm saying? About the history of Masonry and where it comes from and all of the associated studies. Primarily, not to attack anybody. They're just not interested. That's not what they joined Masonry for. Right? But I joined Masonry just for the information, for the study. So I wasn't necessarily interested in getting a zillion degrees as much as getting my hands on the knowledge. Give me that. Oh, give me that. Oh, what's that right there? Oh, give me that. Yeah, I want that. Oh, nobody wanted. Yeah, let me get that too. Right? So you get a window into what was going on during the Renaissance era. Right? And the Renaissance era is the world that we're living in now. Right? So that's the thing that we have to understand. Like, we do understand some stuff, but not in a practical sense. Like, we understand that words have power and words create the world. We get that, but not in a realistic type of sense. So it's hard for us to understand that we're living in a world that was created by Renaissance folks. This is why I keep telling people we have to get more into writing our own books, because we're living in a world created by people who were dead centuries ago or millennia ago. We're living in a world that was created by the idea or ideas of men that were dead centuries ago, right? But because we haven't empowered ourselves in a certain type of way, we haven't been really planting seeds. We haven't been really planting seeds in the soil to create the world that we want our children's children to grow up in. We're not even thinking that far down, right? But today's world is the Renaissance world, or at least the world that people from the Renaissance created, right? And so understanding where these folks got their education, gives you the window to figure out, like, where the Hansel and Gretel, where the breadcrumbs, right? Because we do have people out there that are trying to snatch the breadcrumbs up and eat them or put them in their pocket, right? The people who are eating the breadcrumbs are not as bad as the people who are picking them up, putting them in their pocket, just because they don't want you to be able to, right? So the solutions that we need are in the source material. Listen, that's what you see on the internet. But I'm talking to people all day, even when I'm not on the internet. I'm on my phone or I'm out and about. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what I need you guys to be doing, right? I need you to be out and about, talking to your coworkers, the people that live in your building, your neighborhood, on your block, where your house is, where you park your car, where you go grocery shopping, right? I need you to be getting them to get the books and get the study and this is how we do it. This is how we change the world, right? We have to make our imprints, right? Our characters, right? And then we have to speak them into existence. So knowing certain things, like exactly how the brain works, right, is very important. That's why I've been saying forever. We don't see with our eyes. We don't hear with our ears. We see and we hear with our mind, right? Your brain only processes electricity. It's only electricity going on. It's only magnetism going on. and it's structured, it's organized, right? So the patterns of electricity, the patterns of magnetism, we reference as waves, right? What you doing to my dog? She cranky with you because you ain't taking her out. And you ain't give her none of those treats. Oh, man, wrestling my dog down. All right, so electromagnetic waves and mechanical waves are converted to sound eerily similar to Morse code. Neurons have two frequencies. There are two sets of neurons that relay sound. Brain waves themselves are a form of music. Beta waves, gamma waves are within the range of human hearing. And the loudest brain waves, within reason, of course, gamma waves, right? The sleepier and sleepier you get, the more they reduce. Now, I have another concept that we're going to discuss in the book that I've been working on, body waves. We've talked about it in a couple of books, but we're going to go a lot deeper in the new book. Anyway, the pyramid cells and the substantia nigra control, regulate waking brain waves, and REM brain waves are controlled by the pontine tegmentum and the locus coeruleus. That means gamma waves and the regulation of brain waves in general are neuromelanin based, right? Now, that has a wide there's a variety of different directions that we could go in from there, right? But suffice it to say, because these areas of the brain are neuromelanin dense areas of the brain, right? Because these are neuromelanin dense areas of the brain, that means these are dopamine, and norepinephrine, aka norepinephrine, right? And norepinephrine areas in the brain, right? So we know that Alzheimer's disease is beginning in our 20s, right? People who live a more secluded, more recluse lifestyle, maybe they'll make it to 30 or 40 even before Alzheimer's starts to begin, right? And that is the accumulation of, spent proteins in the brain. That is the shrinking of the brain, right? All of those things begin usually for most people, right? If you drinking, getting drunk, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, eating whatever, Alzheimer's began for you in your 20s. If you're over 21 years old and you live that type of lifestyle, maybe you don't live that type of lifestyle today, but you used to in the past, Alzheimer's has already started for you, right? So these things become important conversation, right? Because pharmakia, modern medicine, right? The Western academia has not offered us a solution for that. The solution is play Sudoku and, we've got some painkillers. If it hurts, if dying hurts, we got some painkillers. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we got some painkillers for you. You can die off quietly somewhere. Yeah, you can die off quietly somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So, but if that's not what you're trying to do, if that's not what you're trying to do, right? These are certain little nuggets that you need to put in your back pocket, right? The substantia nigra works through the thalamus, which is almost a blueprint for a Tesla antenna, right? Just interesting food for thought, right? Just interesting food for thought, right? All right, and then we talk about how mechanical waves are converted. We talk about how mechanical waves are converted. All right, yeah, if you don't have this book, you need to get this book. I believe this is the book that came right after. Yeah, this book came right after the Electrician Manual #1. Right, and there are, man, look at this guy. Let me bring up this guy real quick. Yeah, we're just gonna poke around for a second before we get crazy. I'm sure that y'all watching have already heard of this guy. You already know who this guy is, but just in case you don't, we're gonna bring this guy to your attention. Oh man, I deleted that window. I had a nice little. Hey, y'all want to see a demo real quick? Y'all want to see a demo real quick? Because I don't even want to pull up this guy because we only got 10 minutes left till prayer. Y'all want to see a demo real quick before we go to prayer? Look at this demo. Check this out. Well, hopefully, if I can hit the share screen, I might not be able to hit the share screen, so I can't share it. That's crazy. All right, you know what? I know another way I could do it. That's wow. I mean, that really is wow. All right, we're gonna see what happens. Anyway, I like to bring attention to these people because there's a lot of history hidden with these people that are missing in action. You don't hear about these people for a reason. Like there's a lot of hidden information. So it's good to bring some attention to some of these people who was in their bag. This is a guy who was in his bag. A mathematician and an electrical engineer. Okay, let's see something. Oh, the video is working. All right, so before we go into this guy, like I said, we can check this rough draft. This is a rough draft.
I see a spirit in your eye. No lies, no disguise. Your touch sends shivers down my spine. I'm caught, I'm locked, I'm lost in time. Sparks jumping off your skin. This is where it all begins. Your aura's electric, your pull magnetic. I'm drawn, I'm gone. I love you like a proton. Love's an electron. Pull to you like planets to the sun. This is cosmic. This is real. You're the force I can't conceal. I love you like a proton. Love's an electron. Your voice, it tickles my passion. No tricks, no slide, no placebo. When I'm tunneling through the night, your gravity feels so right. Every glance is a solar flare. I'm floating, but you're right there. Your aura's electric, your pull magnetic. I'm drawn, I'm gone. I love you like a proton. Love's an electron. Pull to you like planets to the sun. This is cosmic. This is real. You're the force I can't conceal. I love you like a proton. Love's an electron.
EnQi prayer number 2. We give thanks and praise to the Most High God for the divine spark that set our cells into perpetual motion. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and caves. We give thanks for the ability to drink clean water every 60 minutes, flooding the river of life. We give thanks that sugar has not covered our ferries and turned them into stone. We give thanks that darkness has not covered the riverbanks with calcium and turned them into stone. We give thanks that anger and fear have not turned our almonds bitter, turning our heart to stone. We give thanks for smooth sailing upstream through the valley of death, through the superior vena cava into the right atrium. We give thanks for smooth sailing around the heart through the corona crown, joining the vortex in the right atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway to the vineyard. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate to the vineyard closes. We give thanks to the Most High God that provides the light and our breath, and the light in our breath. We give thanks for the fine olfactory system that makes our grapes ripe with light. We give thanks for the Jed pillar that provides us with a stable fleet of ferry boats to dock in our vineyard. We give thanks for smooth sailing through the pulmonary vein into the storm of the left atrium. We give thanks for the perfect black solar repeater that induces the primary electromagnetic wave, opening the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the mouth of the Kodesh HaKodeshim closes. We give thanks to the ray wave, reflecting on the semi-lunar valves, opening a pathway into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter. We give thanks for the mechanical wave produced when the lunar gate into the holy royal arch of the Wa scepter closes. We give thanks for the magnetism of the Most Holy, the magnetism that repels and attracts the ferry boats of light 60,000 miles every 60 seconds throughout our vessels and our caves. Amen.
Okay, hold on, let me go get this chair back. All right. So here's something that's important we're going to get into in a second. Not necessarily today, but coming up soon. Right? Because we're going to get more into emotions and feelings. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about emotions and feelings coming soon to a theater near you. Right? And Oliver Heaviside, who he's quiet, like J.J. Thomas, Is it Thomas or Thompson? I always mess his name up. Right. But anyway, he's a British mathematician and an electrical engineer. And he came up with his own way to solve differential equations. And he rewrote Maxwell's equations. And because Maxwell's equations was very confusing to everybody. Some people say that they were not just confusing, but that they were incorrect. But he came up with the concepts regardless to whether they were correct and incorrect. And then Oliver Heaviside corrected them and simplified them, right? Now, if you don't know who Maxwell is the guy who gave us the science on light. Maxwell's the guy that gave us the science on light, right? The relationship of electric fields and magnetic fields, right? The relationship of electric fields and magnetic fields. So this is all very important, right? Obviously, they monetized his information, and, you know, we get the advanced telecommunications, right? They took what he was doing, and we have the coaxial cables, right? So the thick cable, well, most of us now we're using modems, but back in the days, you had to have that thick round cable. In fact, that's why it was called cable TV, because you had to use that thick round cable to plug into the back of your TV. He invented that, right? He invented that. Sorry to interrupt. Listen, Wiki, I'm trying to get me a few little super chat cash apps myself in there, champ. We can't even.
Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon.
But I appreciate you, Wiki, for reminding me to hit my button. All right, so Heaviside in 1873 came in contact with Maxwell's newly published information. Now, mind you, this is a hot period of time. So I always like to set the context. That everything that's going on in this period of time is going on in the backdrop, right? I had this book before too. I'm mad that I lost it. But this is all going on in the backdrop of the Civil War in the United States, right? So you have the Civil War going on, or just wrapping up. You got the Civil War just kind of wrapping up, but that don't mean that there was, you know, everything was smooth. You know what I'm saying? 1865, right? But you also have, like, so that was World War. That was a world war, and it was a world war for colonization. So in the backdrop, you got the Haitian revolutions and all kinds of stuff going on. You got the sugar plantations fighting to do their thing, and you just got a lot going on in this time period, right? But Heaviside, and this is, what is this? Maybe 2 or 3 years from the time period of Darwin doing his thing with Alfred, what's his face, right? So this is all within that same window of time, right? So Heaviside encounters Maxwell's information, right? His new equations and what he just dropped on electricity and magnetism and light and all that. Right. And here's his words. I remember my first look at the grand treatise of Maxwell's when I was a young man. I saw that it was great, greater, and greatest, with prodigious possibilities in its power. I was determined to master the book and set to work. I was very ignorant. I had no knowledge of mathematical analysis, having learned only school algebra and trigonometry, which I had largely forgotten. And thus my work was laid out for me. It took me several years before I could understand as much as I possibly could. Then I set Maxwell aside and followed my own course, and I progressed much more quickly. It would be understood that I preached the gospel according to my interpretation of Maxwell. So he did his own home study. He got the books, right? He went to Amazon. Right? He went to Barnes and Nobles. He typed in Dr. EnQi, right? He went and got the books and did his own thing, right? Heaviside showed mathematically that uniformly distributed inductance in a telegraph line would diminish both attenuation and distortion, and that if inductance were great enough and the insulation resistance was not too high, the circuit would be distortionless, in that currents of all frequencies would have equal speeds of propagation, right? So this is how we get the modern phones and the modern telecommunications, which led to cable, which leads to modems, et cetera, right? So for me, I'm always just looking for information that I can either apply to the human body or information that directly relates to the human body. So his commercial pursuit, right? The commercial applications of his information went towards telecommunications, right? But in 1880, he got into the skin effect, right? The skin effect, right? And this is important because we're going to have a conversation about emotions coming up very soon, right? The skin effect. In electromagnetism, skin effect is the tendency of an alternating electric current to become distributed within a conductor such that the current density is largest near the surface of the conductor and decreases exponentially with greater depth in the conductor. It is caused by opposing eddy currents induced by the changing magnetic field resulting from the alternating current. The electric current flows mainly at the skin of the conductor between the outer surface and a level called skin depth, right? So now when I get my hands on this, I only have one direction I'm going in. Right? I only have one direction I'm going in with this. Right? I'll show you what I'm saying. This is where I went. This is where I went. Right? I went here. And that's the thing about having books. And I know that y'all are having those same things happen to y'all. Y'all are reading the book. Y'all might get halfway through the book, and then something pops into your mind, and you put that book down and you go purchase another book, or you put that book down and you go pick up some other books you already got in your library, or you get lost in an internet rabbit hole for 2 or 3 days because something sparked your mind and you asked a question, and that question led you to another answer, but the answer created more questions. And by the time you look up 2-3 days later, you're somewhere totally, totally unrelated to where you originally started, right? But if you're smart, you got a lot of notes written down. You got a lot of notes written down. You got a lot of information. You got a lot of, you did a lot of traveling, so to speak. You did a lot of traveling, right? So this is where I ended up, right? And what's important about this is emotions and feelings are largely unaccounted for by science. They're largely unaccounted for by science in terms of biochemistry and biology. But these are the missing factors in the relationship of metabolic disease and mental illness, right? So almost every mental illness is associated with physical illness and vice versa. But there are missing pieces, so they're never treated together, right? You go mental health, you go either see somebody that's going to write you a script and give you some pills, or you go see somebody that's going to talk you through whatever your issue is, right? But you don't necessarily get somebody to tell you, listen, 3 to 5 times a day, we're going to jump on these little quick push-ups. 3 to 5 times a day, we're just going to jump on these little quick squats, whatever. We're just going to jump on a few little jumping jacks. You know what I'm saying? We're just going to get, right? And there's no relationship. There's no relationship between ion concentration, right? There's no relationship between circulating ions and organ activity and emotions. And somewhere we have the idea that these things are related. Somewhere we have the idea that these things are related. So we go down foolish roads. This is how we get sucked into chakras and things like that. Those are like catch-all nets. They're just out there to catch people in the middle, right? Oh, you want to talk about processing emotions and how emotions are related to, wellness or health or disease or metabolic illness? Great. We need to work on chakras. And the problem with it is because it is something that is needed, even though I've had many conversations with people, they understand it's made up as gobbledygook, but they're like, yeah, but you know what? As a proxy, just as an imaginary proxy, it's great to still set goals and work towards something and still work through some things, right? So there's a black hole in science for emotion and feeling to be related to mental illness as well as metabolic illness. And then on the backside, we need to work through the tie of emotions and feelings to addiction, right? Because emotions and feelings are tied to addiction that sometimes leads to, right? Because I got a family member. I got a family member that I'm struggling to love. And that family member just had a family-sized bottle of ketchup in 2 days alone. Like that family member just had a whole like family-sized bottle of ketchup in 2 days. And I'm just talking to this person like, and they like, oh no, but I'm vegan though. And I'm like, okay, I get it. That was definitely vegan. It was definitely vegan. But that was a family-sized bottle of ketchup. That's got to be the equivalent of like drinking like 2 5-pound bags of sugar. Jesus, take the wheel. That's got to be the equivalent of 2 5-pound bags of Dominoes. You know what I'm saying? Like, but anyway, so my point is we have to figure out how to process emotions, right? We have to figure out how to process emotions and exactly where do they fit in, right? What is the biochemistry of emotions? And we began to tackle that, honestly. And I thought we did a pretty good job of at least beginning the conversation. It's in this book, the movement book. So in this book, we did a simple, and I meant to go double back sooner. But we've been all over the place. But we did start the conversation. Is it in this book? Yep. It's definitely in this book on page 25. Yeah, so on page 25, we kind of lay out a basic, right? We lay out the basic, right? Adrenaline, noradrenaline, what they do, right? Adrenaline, noradrenaline, increase blood flow, attention, enhance awareness, right? It slows down the experience of time in moments of fear, right? Fight or flight. It slows down your experience of time because adrenaline and noradrenaline are designed to enhance your memory, right? They're designed to enhance your memory. So these are neuromelanin forming molecules, right? And they work in the fear space, right? So not only do they increase blood flow and attention, enhance awareness, but they slow down your experience of time. Dopamine, right? Dopamine, on the other hand, pleasure, addiction, motivation, movement. The dopaminergic neurons are the neuromelanated neurons. Serotonin, light, diet, exercise. Serotonin and dopamine are compared a lot, but they are opposite in terms of your experience of time. Dopamine slows down your experience of time whenever something good is happening, right? So when you get into the zone, you know what I'm saying? You get into the zone. I don't know what that is. Maybe you have an amazing, situation with your significant other, right? Maybe you're playing with the children. Maybe you're writing a book. Maybe you're writing a rap. Maybe you're coding, working on making a, whatever Peyton does. Peyton is over there designing apps, right? Maybe you're in the middle of that. You just had a stroke of genius, right? Dopamine, right? Because you started at 3:00 and then you lost track of time. Dopamine, right? Serotonin, on the other hand, is the opposite. Serotonin is where time just flies. You don't remember where the time went, right? You don't remember where the time went. Or maybe you've experienced serotonin's activity in short spurts, right? Like maybe you driving home from work and you done drove home so many times from work, you could drive home with your brain on autopilot, right? That's serotonin, where you don't even remember driving home exactly, but you drove home because now you home, right? But you don't remember the actual driving home. That's serotonin. Serotonin allows you to do stuff and keeps your bandwidth freed up, right? Stuff you don't have to concentrate on. You don't even worry about it. Your brain just put that in the autopilot space. You're going to take care of it. You can put your brain somewhere else, right? Then you got GABA, right? We talk about GABA, right? Somebody got hot water on? Yeah. All right, well, it sounds like it's warming up. I can hear the fire on the teapot. GABA relaxes your nerves, right? It relaxes your neurons. GABA also helps you to metabolize sugar, right? So GABA is a part of the activity in your beta cells, right? GABA is not just a neurotransmitter, right? Acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a melanin inhibitor, right? It's required for learning, but it is a melanin inhibitor, right? Use accordingly. Glutamate. Glutamate is the go button. All gas, no brakes. All gas, no brakes, right? Glutamate is amazing for a lot of things, but glutamate is, well, they done pull back off the glutamate a little bit. But we went through a time window where the food was loaded with glutamate, right? So everybody was getting excess glutamate, right? That's MSG. And so there was a lot of, pushback against MSG. Now, the Oriental people who are the primary, they own the monopoly, so to speak, or the large portion of the monopoly on MSG. They've spent a lot of money to fight the quote unquote negative propaganda about MSG so that they could sell more MSG, right? So now MSG is almost becoming a protected class of people. Watch out for MSG. MSG may be the first food thing that we are, how like you can't say certain things about certain people. MSG might be the first food to qualify as a protected class of people. They spending that much money on MSG, right? And it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work to get it like protected to that extent, but it is working in terms of the language that's allowed to be used with MSG. The censorship has been limited because in and of itself, glutamate is not dangerous, right? The problem with glutamate is when your brain is inundated with glutamate. When the brain is inundated with glutamate, you get all gas, no brakes, right? And so you either have to figure out how to cut down on the glutamate or supplement with GABA, right? Okay, so there's that, right? Listen, if you don't have this book, go to Amazon and put this in your cart. Go to Amazon and add this book to your cart, right? The more your headphones and speakers break, if you believe in coincidence, man, you just can't argue with folks. You just got to, that's the best way to phrase it. If you believe in coincidence, right? If you believe in coincidence, right? So we walk through endorphins, which are your body's natural heroin factory, right? We all produce opioids naturally, right? Sex, exercise, fun, love, during times that we hurt. What happened with my jacket? I didn't put this on. I done flipped it off and put it back on fast after the prayer. Got something in my sleeve. But our body produces its own opioids, right? So that is a whole nother can of worms, rabbit hole, etc. Right? So we got endorphins. Then we start to go through mind states, right? We start to go through mind states. Mind states, feelings, emotions, right? Pretty much interchangeable terms. Right? So we have mania, right? We have mania, and we give a brief description of the God gene hypothesis, right? The God gene hypothesis, which is important, right? Vesicular monoamine transporter 2. Vesicular monoamine transporter 2, right? This is Well, you have to have the book for that part. Yeah, you have to have the book for that part. But the VMAT2 gene. Yeah, really messing up my YouTube channel. Right? But we talk about mania, right? And so we go through mania, anxiety, happiness, pleasure, curiosity, stress, depression, autism, jealousy, fear, anger, apathy, euphoria, sadness, pain, irritation, lust, attraction, and bonding, right? We go through them in terms of the neurochemistry, just to give a basic layout of the neurochemistry. But the thing is, as we've been discussing the past few weeks, chemistry is not it, right? Chemistry is sheet music, right? Chemistry is sheet music. So there is a relationship associated with all of these different things. And the interesting, and I think we'll probably get a little deeper in the book, but the interesting caveat, right, is when you look at them, right? Let's see if we can find us. Right? When you look at them and then you start to matching up what it is that they do, it's interesting, right? When you look at GABA, when you look at acetylcholine, when you look at glutamate, they stand out, right? The reason they stand out is because you should notice right off the bat, there's no aromatic ring there. There's no aromatic ring there, right? When you look at the big boys, right? These guys, right? These guys all have the big aromatic ring, right? And then when you look at the heroin, the opioids, right? The endorphins, you see two of them. You see two of them, right? So I think we're going to get a little bit deeper into the chemistry of these in the next book. I think that'll be maybe like the electrochemistry. I'm going to see. Like I said, the book is like 70% finished. And my children got some directions they want me to go in. They're like, no, Dad, we need to talk about this. And then they getting more and more opinionated. You know what I'm saying? The more used to the books they get in, the more opinionated they get. At first, they were just happy to help and see their name on the cover. They were just happy to see their name on the cover. They was willing to do any kind of work. You know what I'm saying? They'd be in the trenches with me for days. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes weeks on a book. You know, now, highly opinionated. Nah, well, if we don't do this, then I'm not doing that. Like, yo, that's not how it goes. With a book, you got to kind of, even though it's not a story book, you still got to tell a story. You know what I'm saying? You still got to keep the information related, or you have to start a new book, which is the reason why we have so many books, because I'll be writing a book and I'll be researching for the book. And then there's a whole bunch of spillover as I'm writing this book. And I'm like, oh, this can't go in here. This can't go in here. This can't go in here. And by the time I finish that book, I'm already halfway through another book or two, just with the stuff that I couldn't put in, you know, whatever I was writing at the moment. So, you know, Kylie wants me to, you know, like give more of my personal experiences, you know what I'm saying, with relationships and stuff like that. I'm like, this is not really a relationship book. It's like, well, how is it not a relationship book, Dad, if it's about love and desire? I'm like, note to self. People could be disappointed if I don't put XYZ in the book. I might have to delete some stuff and rewrite some stuff. Then Aubrey comes in. Nope, that don't even make sense. Dad, just stick with what you're doing, because people need to know this and this and this, and this is why people are eating, blah, blah, blah. You know, Aubrey always is food-centered, right? And then so they have their little thing going on back and forth, and then the big kids are like, no, well, we need to then and then. So, yeah. I didn't think there would be so much energy in going in different directions. Because, you know, me, I was somewhere in quantum mechanics and Kemet. I was somewhere between quantum mechanics, Kemet, and diabetes. That's where I was at. It was like, no, Dad, that's not how we're going to do this. That's not how we're going to do this. Yeah. So anyway, we've been on it for a minute in terms of emotion. Now that we agree on, that is a central focal point that we're discussing, the nature of emotions, because that sits at the middle of human relations, business relations, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our habits, addictions, etc., etc., etc. Right? So there's that. Right? There's that. But this right here, this is going to be an important part of the conversation. Listen, they be trolling me to death. They be trolling. That's their way of like cussing me. Like if they was adults, they would be arguing with me in a different way. But because they children, you know what I'm saying? My children anyway, you know, if they don't like the direction I go in, they just be trolling jokes. Ain't nobody gonna buy that book, Dad. Dad, ain't nobody gonna buy that book. You got to do it like this. This is how you got to do it. And I'm like, so hold on. You 10, and you 14. You ain't never had a boyfriend. You never had a girlfriend. And y'all getting ready to tell me about how to do a love book, huh? Because y'all got such a wealth of experience. Y'all got such a wealth of experience to pull from. I should have left y'all with some music. Right now, so I can handle this daddy moment. Oh, you know what I got? I do have something new though. I do have something new that I was doing. I do have something new. Boom, boom, boom.
The way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity. The way we raise injury, I'm the divine epiphany. In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Discover the power of plant genetics and NRF2. These compounds can transform your health with natural strength.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Radox is the
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Discover the power of plant genetics and NRF2. These compounds can transform your health with natural strength.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Radox is the cover story for bioelectricity, and the NRF2 system protects your reduction potential.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Specific plant compounds have the ability to turn off oxidation and activate the antioxidant system.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Photosynthesis and human inspiration form an irreducibly complex relationship evolution can't explain.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended. Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon.
Dark time detox, detox, redux, relapse, detox, 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 bless you, detox, and I have to.
Dark time detox, we blocks, we dogs, we rock. Detox, 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 bless you, NRF2. Detox, I'm still standing too. These blocks, we dogs, we rock. Detox, 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 bless you, NRF2. Detox, we the living proof. I'm still standing when the lights go out. Still breathing when the world counts me out. From the dirt to the crown, yeah, I earned my sound. Turn the pain into power, hear me now. I was low, I was down, but I figured it out. Every scar tells a story, every tear was a drought. Now I rain on the doubts, flood them all out, yeah. I'm still standing now, what you talking about? These blocks, redox, re-rock, detox, 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 bless you, NRF2, detox, we the living proof. Talks in my mind at
Yes, the daddy moments never end. All right, so in the intro to the book, we talk about the conversion of standing waves and traveling waves. And I was saying that before we got deep into everything else, I was saying that this applies to any decision, anything that you get ready to do. Before you begin to do it, it begins in your brain somewhere, or actually begins in your heart, depending on how routine it is, right? But when it comes to push-ups, right, which is our example, prefrontal cortex, right? Prefrontal cortex, premotor cortex, basal ganglia, cerebellum, right? And that's where we jumped off and we picked up the brainwave book and we start talking about brainwaves, etc. Right? Before its motion, it is a reconfiguration of probability and readiness, right? And readiness inside your neural fields. So this is why I was saying that one line was important. And then we got in the heavy side, because heavy side was the premier pioneer in terms of electric fields, right? And that is how your brain primarily works, which is the reason why now we have those big machines that you lay down on and they slide you in to examine your brain, right? Because those big machines, think about how much of the dinosaur age we really in. Yo, oh my God. Hold up. We got to look at that. We got to take a look at this. I want to show y'all this example because this might click. This might click in your brain. This ain't going to be for everybody, but for some people, this is going to click something in your brain. You're going to be like, oh, that's crazy. Okay. Let's go back to the share screen. Right? Let's go back to the share screen. Let's go over here. All right, let's go first computers. Look at these first computers. Come on. Okay, no, these are those are not. Yeah, look at these joints. Look at these joints. Do you see how big these joints is? Look at these computers. And this is one computer unit. This is one computer unit. This is one computer unit. Now you got a tablet. Now you got a tablet the size of a book. Or even better, you got a cell phone that's this size, the size of your hand, that does everything. Your cell phone now, the cell phone you got right now does more on it than these first computers could do. And look at the size of these computers. Right? I want you to understand something. This is very important. So you can see the size of these computers, because as things go on, right, they get smaller, right? As things go on, they get smaller, right? This right here would probably be the most accurate version of your cell phone or your laptop, right? Because this is the first computer right here ran with transistors, right? Now, mind you, this is one computer. It's not like this is one, this is one, this is one, this is one. Like all these different sections are separate computers. Nowadays, if you walk into a music studio or you on an airplane, you somewhere where there's a lot of, each one of these would be something separate going on. No. This is all one unit. This is all one, right? So I want you to think about that when we look at the brain scan. When we look at the brain scan joint, just think about that. right? It is the exact same. It is the exact. Now, I'm not saying it's the exact same in terms of the level of sophistication or whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying is the fact that that joint is huge, the fact that they need a whole room for that, that means that we're in the dinosaur age of this level of technology. This brain scanning thing, we're in the dinosaur age of this. The same way we are looking back, the same way we looking back at those early first computers that took up one whole room, one computer took up a whole room. That's the same way our grandkids or maybe great-great-grandkids is going to look at us and these machines right here. Now, the only difference is these machines are being used to save lives. So there's a different level of importance. There's a different level of importance. But you got to know that these joints right here, yes, the CT scan, you got to know that these are the dinosaurs. They are magnificent. They saving lives. I'm not taking nothing away from these machines. The people that made them, the people that use them, the people who've been saved by them, they done noticed something and been able to operate early or whatever the case may be. I'm not taking nothing away from that. What I'm saying is, in the grand scheme of things, the way that technology is created, developed, processed, enhanced, and moved forward, I'm saying that we are in the dinosaur age when it comes to that technology. And if we're in the dinosaur age of the technology that allows us to understand the brain, come on now, 2 plus 2, 2 plus 2 equals 4, right? That is the reason why the number 1 and the number 2 killers, heart disease, brain disease. This is not like that. You know, the hardest thing to do is to get people to understand that. And I don't see why. You know, like having certain conversations with people. You know, I remember I asked somebody on one of the live streams on Size platform. No, was it Size Page? Size Page is a mix of people that, you know, you got a mixed audience over there. But I might have been on EnQi's page. On EnQi's page, they're allergic to books and things like that over there. But I remember I asked somebody, I said, the fact that heart disease is the number 1 killer, what do you take away from that? Do we know everything that there is to know about the heart and how the heart works? It's the number 1 killer. Am I proposing that I know everything? I'm not proposing I know everything. What I'm saying is that we got a lot of work to do, right? And a vast majority of what we're being taught about the heart and the brain is incorrect. And I've spent enough time on the subject to know that we have a gatekeeper problem. We have a gatekeeper problem. You know, 20 years ago, it wasn't as clear. And I'm not saying Jabari or somebody on the local YouTube space. I'm talking about high level, institutional level, government level, corporate level. I'm saying that this entire aspect of our body, like it's being kept from us, you know. And my interest is primarily, I mean, I'm a cheap date. I'm not that complicated, right? For me, it's not, you know, but the implications are there for other things. We're going to talk about some of those implications in a minute, the big idea, right? But for me, right, it's this. right? Defund diabetes, in case you don't see what the hat says. This defund diabetes, right? For me, it's defund diabetes. It's not that deep, right? It's surface level. But 2 plus 2 continues to be 4. And then 4 plus 4 is 8. And then 8 plus 8 is 16. So I go from diabetes being an energy problem, right? Diabetes is an energy metabolism problem. The cousin or the twin, the fraternal twin of diabetes, which is obesity, right, is an energy storage problem. So we have an energy metabolism problem and we have an energy storage problem, right? And the energy metabolism problem and the energy storage problem are leading to our heart disease, right? And then in the heart is, ground zero for electricity, right? So it stands to reason that whatever it is that we're missing is somewhere in this electricity space, right? Because number 1 killer, heart. Number 2 killer, brain disease, battles it out. Sometimes it's number 3 killer, cancer steps in, right? But the thing with the heart and the brain is that's where all the mitochondria are, right? And the mitochondria are the diabetes thingies, right? The diabetes thingies, like that's diabetes is centered around mitochondria, right? That's where energy is metabolized, right? So it's like, oh, okay. So this diabetes thing, which leads to the heart thing and the brain thing. Okay, so this is an energy thing. So I got to figure out this energy. We got to figure out energy stuff, right? And so in the quest to figure out energy stuff, every time I start having a conversation with somebody that's not a doctor, that's not a nurse, that's not a personal trainer, doesn't matter what their education level is. They could be a 10th grade dropout or a college graduate. If they're not a health professional, every time I start talking to somebody about energy, they go, well, that's like the root chakra and, the chakra. I'm like, what? So then I realized that we were a lot dumber than I had thought. You know what I'm saying? Like I had thought that we were in trouble, but I didn't realize how much trouble we were in. Because if your glass is empty, right? If your glass is empty, that's one thing. You're naive, you're unlearned, you just don't know, right? But if you think you know, your glass is full. So now I got to wrestle with you to try to empty that glass out and pour some stuff. Like it gets, so that's what, that's an old maxim at this point, right? It's easier to teach a young dog new tricks than to teach an old dog new tricks, because the old dog, you have to work on unlearning before the learning process could kick in. And so, but yeah, so for me, that's kind of where it all, all roads lead to Wakanda. You know what I'm saying? It's an energy thing. And then as I continued down the road, I realized there was a black, like a black hole in all of health science, right? And early on, I just felt like, the white man, the white devil, the white devil, it kicked in. I fought it for a long time. My older cousins, my uncles, they coming home with the Elijah Muhammad, I'm like, that don't even make no sense. But at a certain point, it started to make sense. I'm like, yes, this is what happened. The white man plotted against us. And that was good for a moment because it provided me motivation to continue to study. You know what I'm saying? And so once I got further down into the rabbit hole, I go, wait a minute. Look at these skin cancer rates. They don't know anything about this either. There's no Yeah, this is just ignorance and then profit protection. And so that's when I started to really start looking back and start examining, like, now we got the books with the timelines in it, but this is how my ideas originally formulated to even say to myself, a timeline is needed. I started putting timelines together like around 2010. Somewhere around 2010, 2015, I started putting timelines together, just for myself so I could organize some stuff. I'm like, okay, so this is discovered here. This is discovered here. Like, wait a minute. So 1865, there's no real type 2 diabetes. But then 1865, we get a national food crisis, which is a blackout. Nobody teaches that in school. Nobody teaches that between 1870, 1868, and 1920, America's in a national food crisis. Blackout on that information, right? Nobody teaches that food crisis, because the soil around the whole country, basically, where our farms was, it eroded because we didn't have the slaves over there to take care of the soil. The slaves like, yo, we out. We going to we doing what we doing, right? So nobody knew how to take care of the soil. The soil died, right? The soil literally died as a result of, the quote unquote freeing of the slaves. And so the soil dying leads to the creation of synthetic, chemical fertilizers. And the very first chemical fertilizers, they started to get the soil back under control, and get the plants growing again. But the plants were growing sickly, so they couldn't really get crops out of these plants. They was growing deformed because the plants would grow, but their immune system, so they realized that plants had immune systems. Plants had genetics, plants had immune systems. And so the chemicals that they were putting in the soil to get the soil fertile, like fast, it didn't work for the seeds and the plants. So they modified that. They went through a few rounds of that, and they found something that worked. The plants would grow, but the plants didn't have immune systems. So because the plants didn't have immune systems, they realized, okay, cool, the chemical fertilizer works to grow the plants, but we need a new set of chemicals to add into the plants to replace the plant's immune system, because we don't think the immune systems are coming back. We think the crops are permanently damaged forever. Something happened. We think we messed up big time. So the plants will probably never recover. So domesticated plants now need synthetic immune systems. So now they came with pesticides. Pesticide is the solution to the plants not having, an immune system. So now you have the chemical fertilizer on top of the chemical, the pesticide. And this is all like building the plane while we flying it kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? There's no long-term test on what happens to animals that are consuming these new plants and the foods made from these new plants. We fly in the plane while, so all of a sudden, metabolic disease and cancer and all those things start going up. But at the same time as those things going up, profit is going up too. Like, they're making a lot of money off of these domesticated plants. Because they can easily get people to eat them. All you have to do is manipulate the brain waves How do you manipulate the brain waves? You manipulate the brain waves via sugar and salt, right? Sugar tells your body that the food has a lot of energy in it. Salt tells your body that the food is fresh because it gives your body a charge, an electric jolt. So when you get an electric jolt, your body is thinking, oh, this food is fresh, right? So you put the sugar. The sugar says this is a very dense carbohydrate. The salt says this is a very, fresh, and really it's not either. It's not even a real food. It's something that they made in the lab. They just put a lot of salt and sugar in there. And then they put, they mix the salt and the sugar with oil to, kind of hide the sharpness of the taste, but you can't hide it from your belly. You can't hide it from your blood, you know what I'm saying? But you can hide it from the tongue. So, they come up with this new science called, what is this thing called? The bliss point. In my mind, I kept saying bless, but I knew that wasn't the right thing. The bliss point, bliss, right? Because bliss is when you basically have a small high that you get from whatever the food is that you taste. So whenever you taste something and it's delicious, that experience of tasting something that's delicious is a mindgasm where you've reached the bliss point. Some biochemist somewhere made $1 bazillion for, putting that together for you, right? Unless you're doing something natural yourself in the kitchen. But if you're having some form of processed food, or you putting some type of sauce on it, ranch, ketchup, whatever, that's engineered, right? To make the synthetics more palatable. So all of these things, they didn't really exist back in the days. All of the different condiments. The condiments, like before, you always had sauces and seasonings. But the condiments now, you didn't really have, like, it wasn't, but all this chemical, induced food, especially for the first few generations. When you're born into something, you don't know something's wrong with it, right? So we born into Frosty Flakes and ramen noodles and all that. We don't know. We born into, what was that commercial? My bologna has a first name. It's Oscar. Like, I still got that. That commercial probably been off air for 40 years, and I still remember. My bologna has a first name. It's Oscar. So there's a timeline for how this stuff goes. And on one hand, you can look at this like this is monstrous, diabolical devil work. On the other hand, you could look at this as just doing the best that you can for your population, right? Because if we don't have food, we have to find a way to grow something to eat something, right? And until we can do better, we have to do what we have to do. Like, this just is what it is type of vibe. But in between the urgency and in between the reality and the potential, people always say, in times of crisis, there's opportunity, right? So some folks start making some money and wanted to resist change and keep things, so all of these things are happening. And so there's just a timeline is just the best way to sort some of this stuff out. Because without that, you'll start to think that something is a nefarious plot, or it's racism, or it's this, or it's that. And it might just be ignorance, right? We might have just opened up medical schools before we knew what a water molecule was, right? So let alone before we knew that the body was mostly made out of water, We don't even know what a water molecule is when we open up medical schools. Insanity, right? So that's not necessarily a nefarious plot. That's ignorance, right? So we just got to be able to realize in terms of where we at and what job is left to us, because our health, our baby's health, our future generation, that's not really up to somebody else to secure. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not up to somebody else to secure. If they was waiting for other people to do it for them, there'll be no pyramids in South America. If they was waiting for other people to do it for them, there'd be no pyramids in Kemet. We can look back on these groups, these civilizations, because they did what they needed to do for themselves. Right? And they realized something was needed. They did it themselves. Somebody.
You need that deep, yeah. Deep, deep, deep with that blue magic. You need that deep, deep with that blue magic. You need that deep, deep with that blue magic. Theology in a bottle. Calcium electric, I'm magnetic. Your kidney electric, your liver magnetic. I'm talking kinetic. That deep put God in the flesh. That deep put God in the flesh. Say it, say it. Electrons in your bones, stay high on that blue magic brain glow. Set dopamine flow. Genes mode activate. Oral it. Fall. All spirit low. Chakra. EnQi the doctor. Ancient physics streaming on the product. The ketamine and ancient chemistry. Biblical fact. Bring it back from the scroll to the lab. From the text to the trap. Yeah. Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans, school. Yeah, run it up. Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans, school. Hey, tap in, let's go. Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans, school. Send that love, Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans, school. Jack score. Hit the like button, send those viral. Typing in the chat, that's tribal. Support the light, it's cycle. Run it back, flip that title. Subscribe, join the Patreon, level up tiers. Hit the website, we been grinding for a year. Get a boost, that brain, and the bank gets bigger. Copy the URL, make the shares go quicker. Posting on your socials, tag that name. One little share, whole feed in flame. Catch them on the screen, up in that frame. Super chat lit, that's jet fuel flame. Cash out, super chats on crowd of just go. Send that love. Cash out.
Of course, I factor that in, but the thing is, they're not separated. So we would make a mistake if we thought for a second that, pharmakia, and we looked at that the other day. I know that there's so much hours of new video. I don't know. I'm not sure if everybody's seen every minute of the last 24 hours worth of video. In the last 5 days so far, we had 24 hours of videos. So I'm not sure if everybody's seen every minute, but the other day we did like a little quick 2-3 minute lookup on pharmakia and how they related to Monsanto and Upjohn and Pfizer and all of these different companies. And those are the companies that made the fertilizer and the this and that, also the medicine folks, also the agricultural folks. So it's the same group of people in charge of the medicine, in charge of the food, in charge of like alcohol and tobacco, right? These are the same groups, right? And this is one thing I learned from working on Wall Street, right? That the beauty of because when I was younger, I thought CEOs and like president of the company and CEO, like I thought that was crazy. I was like, yeah, if I'm gonna do anything, I want to be a CEO. I want to be a boss. When I got down to Wall Street, I realized CEOs are not, they're really well paid, but they're definitely not, they're the opposite of boss. They're literally paid to, you know what I'm saying? Like that's what they're paid for somebody to yell at them. Period. They're paid to take the heat for someone else. And the stock owners, the stockholders are the actual owners. And that's what they have CEOs and CFOs and all of those different titles for, so that people can have a person to blame when things don't go well. And they can relax wherever they are, playing golf or swimming or whatever they're doing. PTA meetings, parent teacher conference or whatever. I don't know what they're doing. Right. But when you get to the big money, the reason why the 1% of the 1% own such a large, because they have their money invested in all of these different places. So there's not a separate group of people that own the private prisons. Those are the same people that pretty much are invested in the fast food restaurants, agriculture, medicine, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the museums and, the fine arts or history and things like that, those institutions rely on those folks. So same group of people. You know what I'm saying? So there's not going to be anything that shows up in a museum that would maybe threaten the bottom line of, you know what I'm saying? Like it just would make sense, because they'll come by the museum and see it, or they won't even have to come by to see it. When the papers come through for the bread to sign off so that they can get a new thing in the museum, people gonna look at it and be like, "What you gonna do with this? Where you putting this? Who wants to do this display? What is this?" No, we're not doing that. Buy it though, but we're not putting that on display. Buy that, warehouse that. Yeah, that's going in the warehouse. But definitely buy it. Don't not buy it. Definitely buy it, because we need to get it out of circulation. Buy that so we have it, and then put that in the stash. Nobody will see that. We'll put that away. If we need to see that, we'll have it. But other than that, that's not going on display. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, absolutely, I take that into consideration, especially when having like cross-disciplinary conversation where we're talking, our conversation's rooted in health, but we're talking about maybe agriculture or politics surrounding capitalism and how they're influenced, or whatever the case may be. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, so it get crazy. All right, so when we look at some of these big ideas, the impact right? When we look at some of the impact, right? So here's the idea. Now, shout out to Reggie. I don't know if everybody knows who Brother Reggie is. I'm sure some of you know who Brother Reggie is, right? And those of you that do know who Brother Reggie is, I'm sure less of you know me and Reggie's history, but me and Reggie have been oil and water for a very long time. And we have found a common ground. We have found a common ground. So I want to shout out Reggie for that. And then I also want to shout out Reggie because he gave me a couple weeks ago, I was doing a video over there with Sai. Reggie came on and he gave me an article. And I hadn't heard of the lady or the article before and didn't really get a chance to go right into it, right? And I had to get it from the video. So I had to go back and try to watch the video and find the, where the part where he comes in. But he gave me an article where a woman had wrote a paper, I believe it is 2008, and she's talking about the correlation of the Ogdode with quantum mechanics, which is dope, right? Which is dope. No way around it. That's dope. Because her paper is accepted, it's established, is out there. So that creates a pretext, right? Now, she doesn't have in her paper anywhere, or I looked at some of her other stuff, she doesn't have what we're talking about in terms of the wave function, right? That is uniquely ours. That's our thing. You know what I'm saying? We're the source material. We're the source for that, right? But that paper is good because, it establishes that academia has been put on notice, right? It establishes that academia has been put on notice. But it was still kind of general, right? Her paper was still kind of general because that it just was there. And to be honest, if I'm Brother Kaba, right? If I'm Brother Kaba and I see that paper, I'm pissed off. If I'm Brother Kaba and I see that paper, I'm pissed off because he did that research before that lady did. And that lady might have even seen him online somewhere and snatched it and flipped it and bounced it and was just the person, to get that, she had the relationships to get that thing published. You know what I'm saying? That's why for me, it's so important to be able to do the books and to get folks to support the books, right? Because I can publish that way, right? I can publish that way. Boom. Put the book out. So I have a record. I have a record of when we dropped. You know what I'm saying? So, but the wave function is a highly, highly, highly specific, we entered a very specific, nuanced space. So it takes the conversation from coincidence to undeniable. What we have takes it to an undeniable space, right? It's not just a new it's not just a new chapter in science, right? Because we're literally, first of all, we're talking about both aspects of reality, the nature of nature, and we're talking about creation itself, right? The nature of nature, right? And creation. And we kind of did it together, right? We walked into it together, right? We walked it down together. Depending on how long you've been with, with us supporting the movement, we did this all together, right? We started with the concept of understanding the interaction between electricity and magnetism, right? Electricity kind of creating information, magnetism being more responsible for storing, right? Light kind of being a transmission, right? And just building from that space. Right? Having those three things, boom. Understanding that those three things are the basis of the universe and the earth and our bodies, like this, it's just them, right? And kind of working from there. But realizing that this was known at least 5,125 years ago. This is why we have a book. This is why we have our own calendar. Right? 5,125 years ago. 5,125 years ago. We already had a science that recognized our biochemistry was light-based, right? That's literally what I'm showing in the first few seconds.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity, the way we raise injury, I'm the divine epiphany.
I love Dr. EnQi. I love Dr. EnQi.
Yo. American Healer. Talk to him. Hey, and I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it.
Right? So you see Ray swimming through the air, Ray, as a traveling wave. You see Osiris in the ground, right? With the wheat growing from his body, the plants. Then you see Ray merge with Osiris, right? And then what do we see from there? We see photosynthesis. So if you don't know what that is that you're looking at, that's what I'm showing in this.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity, the way we raise injury, I'm the divine epiphany.
I love Dr. EnQi. I love Dr. EnQi.
Yo. American Healer. Talk to him. Hey, and I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. Hormone jump, blood flow rush, brain work sharp, that steel cut hush. Muscle strength up, whole frame turn savage, sex magic in the cut, big fertility package. Heart disease, back down. We block no plots, fibroid shrink, cancer rate drop. Memory locked in, cognition on 10. We healing in the world they play. Amen. Pure knowledge in the vein, it's a new aesthetic. Flip food to medicine, bioenergetic. Plant genetics, said it 3 times, let it say it. Plant genetics, hit the source, that's the real weapon. Get the book in your cart, that's a mission. Amazon move quick, instant transmission. I'm a mason in the lab, blueprint in the kitchen. Anabolic hormone help stay up, stay driven. Get the D in your day, keep your bones all sturdy. Get the blue magic in your body, glow skin purdy. Eat American, heal a menu, every bite, new sermon. Fork to the face, that's a lifestyle learning. Anabolic, not for profit, I'm a prophet, you know I got it. Anabolic, not for profit, I'm a prophet, you know I got it. Soil to the cell, transformation from the plate to the brain, recalibration from the word to the world, revelation, playing cold in a blood, whole nation.
Ooh, that joint is kind of hot. Don't hate, that joint is hot, right? But my point is, so 5,000 years ago, they may not have used terms like we do. Right? They didn't use O2 or, concept of ATP and this, that, and the other, but they understood the combination of ray with the green, right? They understood pigment. They may not have had the word pigment, but they understood pigment to be the green in the flesh. They understood that was the energy space. They understood that when those two things combine, right, with the water, right, which is why the Nile was important, right? They understood that these things came together and produced food, and that was a transformation of energy. And there was a relationship of us to plants, to the soil, and to the stars, right? So much so that Osiris, right, and I was just having a debate with one of my homeboys who is a Kemetic scholar, maybe Kemetic enthusiast, but we was having a debate on the name Osiris or Wusia, however you, Asar, whatever you want to do. But I'm saying that's where Iris comes from. He want to give me the old Google search version and be like, no, Osiris is the Greek, Iris and Osiris is two different woo whoop and rainbow and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but that's when you search it on the internet, it comes up in different search answers, right? Because Latin, right, is Roman. But in reality, it went Kemet, Egypt, right? Or Kemet to Greece, which is Egypt. Egypt is Greece. So it goes Kemet, Egypt, Rome, or Kemet, Greece, Rome. So it goes, Medu Neter, Greek, Latin, just like that, a throughway, right? And there is, there's accepted translations of stuff, but then there's stuff that's debated. Because even amongst the accepted translations, right? Even amongst the accepted translations, right? You got different concepts, right? So this is the main, these are the main elements of Osiris's name or Wusia's name, right? So you have the ear and the awe, right? Something to that effect. Yeah. Right. And when they have the conversation about Osiris or Wusia's name, right? They reduce these two glyphs, right? For convenience, they reduce them to letters. That is crazy. That is crazy. They reduce these to letters, right? So this is where you get the ear or the R sound, right? Because this is obviously Ray. And then this is Offset. This is the symbol of Offset, right? So this is the ear, Usir, or ear, or, you know, there's a few different acceptable pronunciations, right? But they just reduce these to phonetics, like alphabets, like English, right? But really, what we should be looking at is Offset, right? Plus Ray, right? Like a formula, right? Like this is a formula, right? This is a god and another god. This is a god and a goddess. A god plus a goddess is the name of another god, right? And so if you figure out what the meanings are, right? Because this Ray can be what? Sun, day, light, right? Few different things, right? Then you got a set, which can be resurrection, right? Resurrection is birth, fertility, all that's in resurrection. Power, right? Power. And coming out of power, you have royalty, right? All of these different concepts go into that name, right? So even the royalty concept, right? We want to go king, right? Which is one of the names, King of Kings, right? That comes from here. And this is why you get people that say, oh, in Kemet, you know, it was a matriarchy. It was not a matriarchy in Kemet. But the women was empowered. But because the women is empowered doesn't make it a matriarch. It's like because the men was empowered doesn't make it a patriarchy, right? They was just doing the family thing. That was the, you know, the family, man, woman, and child. It was a family unit. Which is why the shin is important, because the progeny, the bloodline, that's what it was really about. Anyway, right? So we can have this conversation, right? Right? The king of light, the power of light, right? The power of the sun, the seat of the sun, the throne of the sun. Like we could go on for days in variations. You know what I'm saying? But the one thing I think is a mistake to do is to reduce Offset and Ray down to just sounds, letter sounds, down to just letter sounds, and try to, you know what I'm saying, minimize what they were doing, right? But yeah, so me and him was having a debate on that, because for me it's important, right? Because we have stories that Upper and Lower Kemet unified around Osiris. We also have stories that Upper and Lower Kemet unified around Narma. Now, the thing that is important, that Osiris and Narma are both symbols of the catfish. And I know y'all think it's the other way around, but the catfish is equally as important as Osiris and Narma. Promise. That's why the catfish shows up in Narma's story and also in Osiris' story. Otherwise, the catfish is stupid. There's no reason for the catfish to be like, that's like, you know what I'm saying? Like 500 years from now, like somebody like, yeah, Martin Luther King, you know what I'm saying? He had a red tie on. Like, why would we talk about his, like, that's just stupid. Like, that's mad arbitrary. He's done so many different important things. Why would we associate him with his necktie? Like, that just, you know what I'm saying? Or a worn out pair of shoes or something. Like, it's just so arbitrary, right? Up until the point where you realize that the catfish in the Nile was one of the most significant, you know, like, because these are electric catfish. So they're talking about bioelectricity. So in the story of Osiris, where the catfish swallowed his privates, right? It's talking about the fertility, the reproduction power, you know, of humans is bioelectricity. And the Narma story is talking about similar, right? Bioelectricity is what they unified around. And so it makes its way into the medical path, right? And then in Greece, they credit Kemet for, you know, the first treatments of like electrotherapy, right? So we know what they was doing with it. We know they understood bioelectricity in the body to a level that was therapeutic in terms of, you know, arthritis, pain medicine, and some other things, right? So it just becomes an important part of the conversation, right? Especially when we know that we dealing with a blackout on all things bioelectric or related, right? It becomes an important conversation. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, we'll talk more about it, right? We'll talk more about it. But that's one of the big ideas. That's one of the big ideas. Right? We are 5,000 years late, right? 5,000 years late, meaning we could have been 5,000 years further than we are today. And I'm sure if we were, we would still have other problems that we were wrestling with, but we wouldn't have these, right? Because with a 5,000 year head start on bioelectricity, I don't think diabetes would be the main problem. Cancer probably would, even though cancer is related, but you can get cancer a lot of different other ways. And knowing human nature, if we figure out bioelectricity, we will start doing other things that will pervert, you know, that we'll find a way to sin. We're going to find a way to mess up the program, right? As we figure out some things, we just move on to other stuff to touch that we're not supposed to be touching. But, you know, that's fine. We need to get on to that. We need to get on to that, whatever that next thing is, right? Because diabetes and blood pressure and heart disease have run their course. So anyway, what's good, Marv? Happy holy days. Happy holy days. Shout out to Jay. Yeah. But yeah, so we would have been way ahead. 5,000 years, we would have definitely been ahead. But when we get to the space where we can identify a bound wave system, right? A bound wave system and a standing wave in terms of the very first glyphs right? This is important. This is important because identifying the first glyphs as wave functions, it changes what all of the glyphs mean. It changes what all of the glyphs mean. It means when they were creating the hieroglyphs, they already understood wave phenomena. So it's not something they discovered way along later on. When they were creating the hieroglyphs, they already understood wave phenomena. When they were telling the stories, they already understood wave phenomena, right? Which is the reason why Ray is always traveling. That's the reason why there's a Ray, a Tum, and a Kepra. All three are sun gods, right? Even though we don't see it that way. You know what I'm saying? We make jokes. Kepra is rolling doodle. You know what I'm saying? Like, Kepra is the star of the show, though. Right? That's why there's a ear, right? Kepra's name has an ear, a ra, a ray, right? A R-A, a R-E, a E-R, or an I-R on the end of it, right? Because Kepra is an aspect of Ray. Ray is an aspect of Kepra, right? But identifying these in the beginning changed the entire language. It changes the language, right? And we made that discovery. So somebody got to nominate Dr. EnQi for Nobel Peace Prize. Get to work. Y'all need to go on the YouTube. I mean, not the YouTube, the Google demons, and figure it out. How do we nominate this Netcher with gold teeth to get? Figure it out. Y'all think I'm playing? Figure it out, right? Because we identify in the first hieroglyphs wave function. Right? And when we identify parts, science tells us that we have to identify interactions, which is the reason why we spent so much time talking about how stories were put together, right? Because the characters represent parts, and the interactions of the characters represent the interactions of those parts. So this is the reason why Ray is always traveling. This is why when I show that little video clip, we have Ray moving through the air, and then you have Ray combining with Osiris, right? Because that literally is my favorite part to talk about, the Amduat 6 hour, right? Because for me, that's mind-blowing. That's mind-blowing to find photosynthesis. I need a Nobel Prize for that, right? I don't know if I'm the first one to find that, right? I might not be the first one to find that. I think I am, though, right? But I know I'm the first one to find this. Right? So anyway, that's important, right? What else? We've spent maybe, what, 50 years? 50 years? Yeah, it got to be 50 years. Got to be 50 years. Maybe longer than 50 years. Yeah, maybe longer than 50 years. Because the old school guys that we would look up to, they had guys that they looked up to. So, yeah, you're talking about maybe 60 or 70 years of arguing, fighting, tooth and nail to establish a line of order, right? that you have the Kemetic Theology, and then from the Kemetic Theology, you have the Bible theology, and then from the Bible, you have, or from the Old Testament, you have New Testament, and then from there, you have the Quran, right? Well, if we go all the way back now, right, and we realize that they actually correctly understood the reality of creation and nature, right, in terms of traveling waves and standing waves, then now we have to look at all of the derivatives. Even if we want to say that this is watered down or that's watered down, if it has its roots here, then these are the roots, right? So if we understand that the Kemetic language is actually a scientific language, if we understand that the underworld is talking about the quantum space, right, and that it's identified in the text as the quantum space, right? How do we know it's identified in the quantum space? Because that's where photosynthesis happens. Photosynthesis is electrons, protons, photons, right? That is the quantum space. Well, that is the space where Osiris was operating. So that is the quantum space. That is the underworld he went to and was doing his thing, right? So that is correctly identified, right? So anything that comes from this, the roots are scientific. The roots are scientific. Even if we don't no longer represent even if we no longer recognize the characters, nor the interactions of those characters as scientific, that doesn't mean that they're not, because we have not been educated to understand that. And we have to stop talking out both sides of our face. On one side of our face, we say, yeah, we know they was hiding something. The education system, they don't want to tell us, woo, woo, woo. Then on the other side, when we see certain things, we go, yeah, but that ain't real, because if that was real, the education system would have confirmed it. Like, what we doing? What are we doing? Right? So we got to realize, now that we have this confirmed, right, the derivatives, and then we have to go back and re-educate ourselves, right? We have to re-educate ourselves. We have to stop having the same arguments about, like the story part. The story part is how the characters were identified and the interactions of those characters were explained. All right, so it's not metaphorical coincidence. All right, it's not metaphorical coincidence. It's not poetic license. It's not fairy tale. It's not mythology. It is science. Right? It is science. So, quantum mechanics is not intuitive. That's another important part of this. Quantum mechanics is not something that is intuitive, meaning this number, I'm not somebody that really puts a lot of stock in like Graham Hancock and those types of people, right? But if you listen to the Kemetic text, you look at what knowledge they was working with, you do have to admit that there had to be some stuff going on before the Old Kingdom, right? There had to be some stuff going on before the Old Kingdom. So this also provides solid evidence of that. Meaning, When we go back to the earliest of documented times, they already had advanced information. They already had advanced information. Now, I'm not going to join the bandwagons of folks and say, yeah, that's because aliens came down from the planet Aldebaran or the planet Risk or Nibiru or, no. That's not what we're doing. What we're going to say is at the other end of the Nile, right? What I'm going to do is listen to those people say where it came from, because they say it. Oh yeah, at the other end of the Nile. Yeah, at the other end of the Nile. Yeah, they put us. Yeah, that's where we came from. We came from up there, and we already had the woo 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 woo. Right? That's part of the story associated with this. Right? That's part of the story associated with this. They put it in Simba, the Lion King. When they was explaining to the Lion King, you come from up there, up the water up there. Your family, your people is from somewhere up there. And they tell a story. Yeah, we was up there and then something happened and that's in the Lion King. Right? So, but my thing is the science and the propagation of the science. Right? The science and the propagation of the science. Right? Because when you realize that diabetes is the primary killer, right? Diabetes is the primary killer. And diabetes is not explainable by any other science than this. There's no other way to understand diabetes. Now, I'm not talking about hieroglyphs and all that. What I'm saying is quantum mechanics. There's no other way to have a diabetes discussion outside of quantum mechanics, right? The moment that you talk about the Krebs cycle and breaking down carbohydrates, you strip the carbon, right? You take the hydrogen, NAD, FAD. Now you pull in electrons and protons apart to cycle through the mitochondria. That is all quantum mechanics. Absolutely not, lady. And turn off that light. Thank you. Yo, they be trying to violate while I'm on the live stream. Like it be going up while I'm on the live stream. Like I need to Puff Daddy my household, bro. Seriously. I need to put cameras. I need to put cameras all over and set up me a little screen right here. So when I come on the live stream, I can still see what's going on in every room. Otherwise, I'm going to step outside this door one day and the whole house going to be on fire. Everywhere except this room is going to be probably gone. Like when you see them natural disaster movies, you step outside your room, the tornado to rip the whole. That's how my house be. Yeah, you're right. But I don't know what the timeline is on that. So without a timeline, it's responsible to leave that alone. I'm not even putting that on the screen. Yeah. Without a timeline, it's not responsible to say that because if somebody's going to take our alien folks and our chakra folks, they in communication. So they're gonna grab that and go. Yeah. So that you don't want to put, you want to leave those, put that in your back pocket. Put that in your back pocket, because they will use that to take everything else away from you and go, yeah, that's right. Y'all ain't make nothing, because that was all aliens that came down, little green. That was Martians that came. Yeah, that was aliens that came from Atlantis, and they was the ones who wrote the medical papers and built the pyramids and did the math. You ain't did nothing. So, but these are the things that we got to realize, is that your intellectual inheritance, right? Your intellectual inheritance, right? So it goes just beyond the Ogdo and the starting point, right? The Ogdo and the starting point. It goes to Ra, right? Radiant propagation, right? Traveling waves, right? That is that relationship between Ra and Osiris. Osiris represents the maximum stability of a bound wave system, right? He's still, there's no movement, right? And then Ra comes and adds light, pun intended, right? And so you get the regenerative story. But with the regenerative story, you get a third character. You get a third character the same way as you would man, woman, child, right? Man, woman, child. You get a third character. You get the traveling wave meeting a bound wave system and becoming bound to the bound wave system. And then from the bound wave system, now you have a offshoot, right? Now you have a offshoot, right? Which is Heru. And Heru himself represents light, right? Which to me, it was even a higher level of genius to use the falcon for the speed of light. That's literally what the falcon represents. The falcon represents the speed of light, right? That's not accidental. That's not accidental. That's not coincidental. Listen, I don't believe in coincidence. Some people will believe in coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. Because somebody's going to say, the argument would be, well, they would have had to known that the falcon is the fastest animal on Earth to be able to say, okay, well, we're going to use the fastest animal on Earth to represent the speed of light. Okay. I don't have a problem with that. I don't even waste time to figure out those little nuanced details, because for me, the facts is just the facts, right? The fact is that we have light being represented by the fastest animal on Earth. And not just the fastest animal on Earth, but the fastest animal in the air, right? So for me, that is a early, not necessarily accurate, because we know that the falcon goes like between 200 and 300 miles per hour, somewhere in there, right? Nowhere near close to the actual speed of light, right? But very profound still to be able to grab the fastest animal in the sky on the planet to represent the fastest substance known to man. So they use the fastest animal to represent the fastest substance, right? Traveling, like, just, it's crazy, right? So this is a full field-based cosmology. It is a full field-based cosmology. No, that's a fact. That's a fact. And that's even a part of the Falcon as well, right? Because that's how the Falcon gets the speed. It goes up high, high, high up, and then it dives down and like crashes into whatever it's going to eat. You know what I'm saying? That's how it kills its prey. It goes up super high, you know what I'm saying? Almost like out of the sight of the eye, and then darts down super fast, and then boom. No, those are allfacts.com. Yeah, those are allfacts.com. Right? So what I'm saying is, even going back to the name Osiris having Re and Osset, a combination of Re and Osset, right? The understanding that light, right, is life was known 5,000 years ago. Now, as we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, if y'all don't have the books, let me show y'all what books we on. Let me show y'all what books we on. Right, go to Amazon, type in EnQi books, right? This is the book we in. So if y'all don't have this book, go get this book, right? We're specifically in this book, but we are jumping back and forth a little bit between this book and okay, so it's not down here. All of these are Dr. EnQi books, by the way. And no, I'm not flexing. I'm actually looking for a book. There we go. Boop. So we are actually jumping back and forth between these two books. And this is dope that we in the number one new release spot for longer than 48 hours. I've been in the number one new release spot before, but never longer than like 2 or 3 days, right? We've been holding this spot for a minute, right? We've been holding this spot for a minute. So, but these are the primary 2 books that we in. Right? These are the primary 2. I hear you. I'm a flex when I get a bestseller. Because those, I mean, I appreciate the love. You know what I'm saying? But that don't mean like I'm selling a bunch of books. You know what I'm saying? It just means that the information is, you know what I'm saying? Like, so the interest is peaked. You know what I'm saying? But I'm interested in getting a bestseller. Like, that's what I need. I need a bestseller. You know what I'm saying? That's gonna be crazy. Yeah, when we get a bestseller. No, that is an amazing achievement. You know what I'm saying? That is a vibe. It's a vibe. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, when we get bestseller status, then we gonna be talking. Then we're gonna be talking heavy, right? All right. So what we're talking about, though, in terms of Kemetic theology is a full field-based scientific understanding. When I say field-based, because the word field I'm telling you, I feel like the word field is getting ready to become like alkaline or chakra. It's getting ready to be so overused and misunderstood that you're going to be ready to strangle somebody soon. Give it 3 years. The word field, just remember I told you, the word field is going to be so overused, you're going to be ready to choke slam somebody. Right? But field primarily is about electricity and magnetism. Right? It's about electricity, magnetism, and then you can even throw mechanical waves in there as well. Because anytime you deal with a wave, right? Anytime you deal with a wave, the assumption is that there is a medium, right? There's some sort of disturbance. So you'll hear a conversation like that where they'll say it's a disturbance in the medium, right? In order for something to be waving, there has to be a disturbance in the medium to generate a wave, right? So then you get into even more nuanced conversation where they talk about wave function is not actual wave, it's wave probabilities and blah, 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 blah. Right? So the idea though, when we're talking about light, we can remove mechanical waves because that's more pressure waves and acoustic waves. But when we're talking about light, right, we have to remember that light in and of itself is not even really a thing. As per science, light is not a real thing. Right? As per science, light is not a real thing. Right? Because you have the magnetic field, right? And then you have an electric, right? You have a magnetic field and an electric field. Well, let's just do plain lines, right? You have an electric field right here oscillating, right? And then you have a magnetic field oscillating, right? And here at a 90-degree angle, right here where these two fields intersect is where light is produced, right? Which is the reason why we spent the last couple of days really binging in on the 3-4-5 triangle, right? Because the science of music is also the science of mechanical waves and electromagnetic waves, right? Because light is produced here. So when you have a magnetic field here oscillating, an electric field here, at the 90-degree angle is where they're going to intersect deconstructively, meaning that neither field is going to interrupt the other. This field is not going to slow down this one's not going to slow down that one. And they're going to produce light, right? So light is a result of a disturbance of two vibrating mediums, right? And whatever that force is generated from those two fields interacting. So it's not necessarily something in and of itself, right? It's not necessarily something in and of itself. It is something generated from the interaction of these two fields. Now, it gets even crazier when you figure out that there's no magnetic thing, right? There's no unit of magnetic thing, right? There's an electron, right? We know there's an electron, but there's no magnon. There's no magnon. Magnetic fields are primarily relying upon the activity of an electron. So technically, the relationship of photons to electrons is really all we have to really discuss, right? That's really what nature comes down to, right? And that's what your food comes down to, or at least natural food anyway, right? Well, even fake food, it doesn't matter. A Twinkie has just as many electrons as an apple or a carrot or a kale salad. The difference is how much redox is actually happening when you process that, right? So you may have more oxidative stress produced than actual energy, right? And so you're moving backwards energy-wise. And then you may build up problems metabolizing energy. So now you got cell damage. But anyway, once we get the fact that there's wave mechanics, right? Wave mechanics in Kemet, everything from that point forward has to change, right? And even though we know that they had the convex lens, we don't have proof that they had like electron microscopes. We don't know that they had the power in their microscopes that we have in ours today, right? So they didn't have calculus like we have today. They didn't have algebra like we have today, right? The only instruments they had were direct observation, right? So we have to rewrite the entire intellectual genealogy of modern science, right? All of these concepts that we consider modern, right? Now we have, I mean, the problem is to get around the fact that it's the guy from the Bronx with the gold teeth. That is a big hurdle to get over. That it's the guy from the Bronx with the gold teeth. Because if I graduated with a PhD from some school, right? Well, they probably would have. I probably would be in the boule. I can't hold you. I ain't gonna lie. If I went to if I had a PhD, I'd probably be in the boule. Yeah, I'd probably be paid off. I'd probably be paid off somewhere. You wouldn't hear from me. I have too many children. They would have bought me. Yeah, they would have bought me off. I have too many children. They would have bought me off. Right? I'd have been in the boule. They would have tied me up. And they don't tie you up directly. So don't think that they just came and say, hey, you want to sell out here? Just no. What you do is, oh yeah, you need a loan. You need a loan. Yeah, don't worry about it. You got bad credit. Don't worry about that. We got you. Yeah, you got bad credit. Don't worry about that. Here we go. We got you covered. Don't worry about it. Then before you turn around, you wake up and you're like $1 zillion below zero. Yeah. They're like, well, listen, yeah, we're going to give you a grant to do some scientific research. Bet. You don't realize when you get that, you're limited to what you can talk about and what you can discuss. You know what I'm saying? Until you're already limited. Right? So you turn around and you realize you like Drake. You know what I'm saying? You turn around after you done had X amount of success and realize, wait a minute. Let me see them papers again. What was that? Pull them papers back out. Who signed? What did I sign? What did I sign in that contract? I signed that. Yeah, you signed that, champ. you signed that, champ. Lay down. Right? So we have to deal with the entire linear progression of research and understanding of creation, biology, biochemistry, quantum mechanics, theology, all of those things we have to relook at. Right? And it is a larger refinement than even, like, again, I'm the hurdle to jump. right? Because we have to get over the fact that it's me bringing this to the people, right? But it is a larger hurdle to jump than in the 1900s when you had Einstein and Schrodinger and all of these folks coming. It's a larger hurdle to jump. It was a very small hurdle to jump because you had Max Planck doing his thing. At the same time, you got Maxwell doing his thing. And then you got guys like Oliver Heaviside and those folks. So nobody was really making super large jumps. You just had a bunch of people getting busy. And every 10 years, every, 15 years, something crazy. And it was like, oh, okay. You did. All right, keep it going. Paul Dirac. You had the Dirac, you know what I'm saying? Like you had Paul, all these different people. Okay. Oh, you did. All right, cool. Keep going. This is a total rewrite. You know what I'm saying? This is a total rewrite because we've had 2,000 years at a minimum. We've had 2,000 years to examine these texts back, forward, front, upside down, inside out. And we haven't come up with anything. And then we came up with something. Yeah. So the implications goes beyond just science and health, right? It's epistemic or epistemological artifacts that have to be reconsidered. Medical papyri has to be reclassified, right? Reclassified. Geometry has to be reclassified, right? It has to be, relabeled as pre-equation, as opposed to saying they had the absence of equations. They didn't have certain math. They didn't have linear calculus or whatever the case may be. No, they had the geometry, right? And the geometry encompasses all those things. All those things come out of the geometry. So they didn't need to have the equations to have the understanding because they had the geometry. Right? You don't have to have, you don't need that. You know what I'm saying? That's like when somebody just getting on their feet, or maybe you got a child that get their first little job and they want to do something around the house. So you let them pay a cell phone bill or something. Like, okay, cool. You just paid the cell phone. You just paid the cable bill. You ain't really like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, when you have the geometry, that's the note. No, I'm paying all the bills. The geometry encompasses all of the mathematics. All of the mathematics is in the geometry, especially when you add stories to the geometry. That's what makes it so crazy, is they had stories. So it makes it scientific because you identify parts and you identify interactions of those parts with the stories, right? And then the parts become characters, and the stories, their interactions themselves get anthropomorphized, and that becomes theology, right? That becomes theology. We're telling a story about light and chlorophyll, light and chlorophyll and photosynthesis, but we're using characters, right? We're using characters to describe these things and their interactions. Even photovoltaism, right? Even photovoltaism was understood, right? You have the perfect black being green, right? So that's why everything is a black something, black, because it's not about necessarily black. It's about wave function. It's about energy dynamics, right? It's about energy dynamics. So all of these are big idea big idea aspects, right? All of these are big idea and racial aspects, theological aspects, political aspects, economic aspects.
Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles, 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 over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect, it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
In the beginning was the way was God, the way was God, the way was hard. Every step a symphony, timelines infinity, the way we raise injury, I'm the divine epiphany.
I love Dr. EnQi, Dr. EnQi. I love Dr. EnQi.
Yo. American Healer. Talk to him. Hey, and I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. And I'm about it, not for profit. I'm a prophet, you know he got it. Hormone jump, blood flow rush, brain work sharp, that steel cut hush. Muscle strength up, whole frame turn savage, sex magic in the cut, big fertility package. Heart disease back down, we block no plots, fibroid shrink, cancer rate drop, memory locked in cognition on 10, we healing in the world they play. Amen. Pure knowledge in the vein, this a new aesthetic, flip food and medicine, bioenergetic. Plan genetics, said it 3 times, let it say it. Plan genetics, hit the source. That's the real weapon. Get the book in your cart, that's a mission. Amazon move quick, instant transmission. I'm a mason in the lab, blueprint in the kitchen. Anabolic hormone help stay up, stay driven. Get the D in your day, keep your bones all sturdy. Get the blue magic in your body, glow skin purdy. Eat American Healer menu, every bite new sermon. Forward to the face, that's a lifestyle learning. Anabolic, not for profit, I'm a prophet, you know he got it. Anabolic, not for profit, I'm a prophet, you know he got it. Soil to the cell, transformation from the plate to the brain. recalibration. From the word to the world, revelation. Playing cold in a blood, whole nation.
Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon. Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
You need that D, yeah. D, with that blue magic. You need that D, with that blue magic. You need that D, with that blue magic. Theology in a bottle. Calcium electric, I'm magnetic. Your kidney electric, your liver magnetic. I'm talking kinetic. That deep put God in the flesh. That deep put God in the flesh. Say it, say it. Electrons in your bones, stay high on that blue magic. Brain glow, set, dopamine flow. Genes mode, activate, orally. Fall, all spirit low, chakra. EnQi the doctor, ancient physics streaming on the product. They get a meaning, ancient chemistry, biblical fact. Bring it back from the scroll to the lab, from the text to the trap, yeah.
Hey, hold up. Hey, look. We live with it. Hey.
Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans school.
Yeah. Run it up, run it up,
Run it up. Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans school.
Hey, tap in. Let's go.
Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans school. Send that love, that love. Cash up, super chats on crowded jeans school. Just go. Hit the like button, send those viral. Typing in the chat, that's tribal. Support the latest cycle. Run it back, flip that title. Subscribe, join the Patreon, level up tiers. Hit the website, we been grinding for a year. Get a bush, that brain, and the bank gets bigger. Copy the URL, make the shares go quicker. Posting on your socials, tag that name. One little share, whole feed in flame. Catch them on the screen, up in that frame. Super chat lit, that's jet fuel flame. Cash out, super chats on crowded just go. Send that love, that love. Cash out, super chats on crowded just go. Just go, let's go. Just go. Come to my YouTube page, don't lag. Bell on locked in, that's swag. Chat going crazy, whole squad in the back. We teaching, we joking, we talk real fast. Linking them ball, you know that code. One click, whole tribe in go mode. From the couch to the glow, that how we roll. Turn views in the fam, that's yeah, screw go, yeah. Cash up, super chats on crowded, just go. Send that love, that love. Cash up, super chats on crowded, just go. Just go, just go, just go.
Share the video, hit the like, subscribe, Cash App, Super Chat, AmericanHealer.website, Amazon. Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration.
Rolling through the sand like a thought in disguise. The scarab spins truth where the cosmos collide. Energy whispers, it never says goodbye. The Beatles crawl, the Beatles rise.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.
Sort of burst the chaos, yet the chaos rise. My name Beatles. Beatles over and over, spinning the world in the grip of their shoulders. Beatles, 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 under and over, rolling through time till the blackness is sober. The heat fades lower, the order begins. The stillness so perfect it hums from within. The void sings softly, entropy takes a bow. In the shadow of silence, the scarab knows how. The second law is dancing, feeding life through decay. The third law holds the promise that the stillness will stay.
Go to AmericanHealer.website now. Get the tools for health and inspiration the way God intended.